But what I'm going to talk with you today is decisions with data. My name is Carl Trigg. I'm the Director of Operations with Purplebeard. I'm going to be talking about how to unlock your business's potential. However, I noticed that some of you are wanting to move into the kind of digital analysis sector. So this is something that you can also take with you on your journey into your eventual roles as data analysts, in order to help whatever business it is you end up going into as a data analyst or whatever role you're going for. Okay, so just a bit of a potted history of me then. So left school in '97. I joined the British Army in its engineering arm, so the Royal Electromechanical Engineers. So initially I was fixing kind of tanks, trucks, heavy light weaponry, all sorts of stuff like that. And that's where I kind of first became aware of the need for data. So we were talking about things like how many spare parts for the vehicle should we take. Did my degree. Then I was kind of immersed in the quality world. So a lot of what I've been doing in my professional life post-army has been around quality. So I've been in manufacturing, logistics, suppliers, and they're real industries that use data, in everything they do. So data is absolutely all-encompassing with those kind of organisations, as it is with the wider business world. And that has allowed me to kind of understand the need for effective data analysis, data gathering, and making decisions based on data. So you can see there, Jaguar Land Rover. So I've dealt with some quite complex engineering problems using data to solve them. I've also helped support with kind of large-scale product recalls, where things like safety concerns for the products are concerned. So the kind of the gathering, the analysis, and the use of data to drive decision making to fix those problems is really, really paramount. So I've been with Purplebeard since 2022. We've recently been awarded good provider status from Ofsted, and I'd like to think a lot of the work that went into getting that good grade was based on the use of effective data to drive where we were going and understand where we had gaps and stuff, and we needed to improve our provision. So yes, that's really the icing on the cake for the last kind of year for us. Next slide, please, Dimple. Okay, so what am I going to cover then? So I'm going to cover 5 sections largely. I'm going to talk briefly about the power of data. I'm going to talk about the collecting of data and the various methods that we can use, the analysis of data and the kind of tools we can use to do that, and how we can go about visualizing data. I'm going to also talk about how to make informed decisions based on data. And then lastly, I'm going to talk about the challenges and solutions. So for the eagle-eyed amongst you, you'll see that kind of sections 1 to 5, it kind of forms the basis of any kind of business analysis or data analysis kind of process. You've got to understand where it's like going on a journey. You've got to understand where you are. You've got to understand where you want to go, and you've got to understand how you're going to get there. Okay, so all of this will become apparent. So that's what we're going to cover. So in today's fast-paced business environment, making informed decisions is crucial, and data plays a pivotal role in helping organisations make better decisions, drive growth, and stay competitive. Okay, so what is it when we talk about data? So data in its most kind of in its most basic form is information. It's in various forms. It can be numbers, text, multimedia that can be collected and analysed. And largely it comes in 2 forms. So we're talking about structured and unstructured. So the visual there, so structured data, that's things like spreadsheets. It's things that we find in a database, spreadsheets, data files, graphs. It can be human or machine generated. And I think we're all kind of familiar with kind of raw data sets, in a structured format. Okay. The opposite of that is unstructured. So these are things that we would like to say you find in the wild. So this could be text, images, audio, video. So think things like customer feedback surveys, or kind of heat maps of where people walk or travel. When you go on your maps, when you're taking a journey, it might be things like, which roads are more congested than others. So these are all kind of wild, unstructured forms of data that we can talk about. So why does data matter then? So it's really the lifeblood of modern business data. Is most businesses now are data driven. The better ones in the past were certainly data driven, but the main ones that I've just played on the screen, they're 2 companies that we hopefully we're all completely familiar with. It's the lifeblood of modern businesses. It drives strategic decisions, innovation, and growth, and it allows organizations to understand customer behavior, market trends, and operational efficiency. So if we take Amazon as a case in point, so Amazon has got the lowdown on most of us in terms of our shopping habits. Yeah, it understands what we've bought in the past. It knows what we've added to our cart. It knows what we've hovered on. It knows what we've viewed. It collects all this data on us. And that data allows them to kind of build up a model of what we do and how we operate as a shopper. It predicts our behavior. It helps us there. It helps Amazon then to target its marketing efforts. For example, Amazon will know when you might need some more bin bags, for example. So it will send you an offer for bin bags. It might know that when you might be looking for a new kettle, for example. And they can make all this kind of predictions based on data analysis and trend analysis and so on. And furthermore, it allows them to optimize its prices and deliver its products more efficiently. I don't know if anybody's seen the kind of warehouses that Amazon operate. They are highly, highly efficient in what they do. Pickers who go and collect the goods off the shelves, it's planned out to the absolute second of what it is to get rid of any waste. And only data allows them to do that and unlock that kind of efficiency. And that's why predominantly they are the market leaders in what they do. Netflix, obviously, a similar type of thing, but in a different industry. They know our viewing habits. They know what to suggest that once we finish the box set, they might suggest another one. And that's all because they understand and use data correctly to kind of predict our behavior. So hopefully that outlines that. So next slide, please. Okay, so collecting data then. So there's several methods that we can use to kind of collect data. Some of them are listed there. Things like interviews, things like sensors and things like that, experimentation, surveys, written data collection, all of that type of stuff can help us. And selecting the right data depends on what the goals are, yeah, and the type of data you need. So, if you're going on a journey in your car, you might want to understand, traffic data, for example. If we're launching a new product, we want to understand market data. So all of these things, you've got to think about what's the right kind of data for whatever goal it is you're trying to accomplish. So when we talk about data sources, then largely we bucket them into two groups, so internal and external. So external things are things from publicly available on the internet, e-commerce, real estate, all of that type of stuff. They're all external data that we can kind of glean from publicly available sources. The same with geographical data, so maps, localization, GPS stuff, and all of that type of thing. Files, so that could be invoices, documents, sheets, customer review surveys, and things like that. And then lastly, data from third parties. So we might call upon a third party to go and harvest some data for us to get an understanding of customer behavior, whether that be credit card spending or the types of weather or telecommunication informations and things like that. Internal data, that's all things that we've got within our grasp. Yeah, so that's all things that we've got kind of within our own kind of business or our own kind of sphere of influence. So that's things like user data, so our logs, messages, mails. So those things we can glean from our customers, from our employees, or from people that we collaborate with. And we can understand behavior from that. Internal documents, again, so things like invoices, contracts, notes, and things like that. We can understand, for example, if a client is, if we invoice a client and they take longer progressively, every invoice we send to pay, we might iterate from that there's an issue there, and we can identify a kind of trend that's going to happen. The IoT, Internet of Things, so cameras and sensors. So we might want to use that to understand if we're, in like estate planning or kind of, maintenance or things like that for buildings. We might want to understand the kind of footfall around certain routes in a building, routes of access and egress. We can get that from cameras, sensors. Likewise, in manufacturing, if any of you go into that industry, you could understand from cameras and sensors whether qualities are likely to happen or have happened, and we can understand, when things like tools are wearing out or or when the upper or lower limits of the acceptable range. And then lastly, logs. So website platform logs. So I think a couple of you have mentioned about marketing. So this is things like through rates, bounce rates and visiting time and landing pages and all of that type of stuff. So that's all data we can use internally to understand and kind of get a grip on what we need to understand. Okay. Okay, so analysing data then. So once we've identified what data we need and where we're going to get it from, then we need to look at how do we analyse it. Obviously, everyone's familiar with Excel, at least I hope you'd be if you're on this call. But there are other things as well, Tableau, Python, amongst others. I mean, literally every time you wake up, there is a new platform out there doing something great, usually with a subscription model. But I was always advocate to start with the basics, and that's what I've done with Purple Beard. When I started, it was a kind of back to basics approach. We used Excel in the start, even though we've got talents and people with immense amount of talents in things like Tableau and Python and SQL and Power BI and all that type of stuff. My kind of approach was start with the basics, understand what constitutes the data in terms of what inputs, what are we doing with the data, what's the output, because everyone's kind of, especially in today's modern world, the temptation is there to kind of race forward and automate the world, make it completely automated, zero human interaction. It does it all for you, just press a button. But the issue with that is if you don't understand the core underlying calculations and functionality, what you're trying to achieve, you will go wrong with that. So it's a kind of walk before you can run approach. So I'd always advocate that, at least in the first instance, before you start going on to the more complex things. Okay, so data visualization then. So apologies if I'm teaching people to suck eggs, but largely speaking, we can kind of break this down into 4 categories. So you've got your comparison types of data. So these are things like bar charts, line graphs, and things like that. You can analyze trends over time. And so often I see, especially from my freelancing career, where the wrong charts are applied for the wrong type of data. So for example, you might have a stacked bar chart, for example, that's being used to analyze something or trying to show an improvement over time. You can't use something that is a composition kind of data graph or visualization in order to visualize a trend over time. You need things like line graphs for that, or bar charts and so on, or column charts. Relationship diagrams are helpful in understanding how two interlinking sets of data interact with each other. So you might want to understand from a relationship data about, whether it's more, let's say, men than women, or old people than young people are using your product, or what kind of months is a certain event happening, or whatever, or what time frame. So that's the kind of relationship one. Distribution, this is more geared towards the kind of quality of the data, and from these you understand things like scatter charts and histograms and things like that. This is all about, and these kind of visualization charts are more about understanding whether or not a set of data is representative, understanding the kind of averages and the standard deviations and so on. So you can kind of hone in and get whatever it is you're trying to do right, so understanding where it sits in the whole kind of distribution. And then lastly, at the bottom, you've got graphs, things like that. Composition charts is more about kind of understanding the composition of the whole. So how do the constituent parts of the whole marry up in order to make the whole? So that's where things like pie charts and bar charts and things like that come in. So hopefully that's given you some insight into the types of data visualization and why it's important that we select the right one. Okay, so making informed decisions then. So you could probably iterate this chart from, or you could probably put this chart into many different types of process. But largely speaking, like we said about our journey, you've got to understand where you're going first. You've got to use the data collection and the right data collection. You've then got to make sure you're analyzing the data in the right kind of format. Then you've got to make sure you're interpreting the data correctly. And this helps derive actionable recommendations. And then lastly, the implementation of decisions based on the data. So we'll come onto it a little bit. Oh, sorry, Dimple, can we just go back? Sorry. You're jumping the gun there. Um, so um, when we have a team of people, and especially a team of individual people who are incredibly talented, keen. So the need for data-driven decision making is quite simple. If you can show through effective data collection, data analysis, and interpretation, if you can show that that's what the data is showing you, then what you're doing by doing that is you're aligning all those around you um, to what you're saying. So, if you have a line chart that shows, let's say, profitability is on the way up, then people can't, as long as they understand where we got that data from and how we've interpreted it, and there's broad consensus that we all interpret and agree with the kind of interpretation of the data, then that makes the next step, the action, very, very simple, And what it does is it means that all of the team are totally aligned and pulling in the right direction to solve the problem. Yeah. So it goes from being lots of people with subjective opinions to a whole unified team with an objective view of an appreciation of the state of the current situation, which allows us to solve the problem more easy. So that's really the power of making informed decisions in this process. Okay, so common problems then. So data security and privacy, obviously it's paramount. I think most of us understand that. There are things like GDPR that is non-negotiable. Whenever we harvest data, especially customer data, security and privacy concerns are paramount. And protecting sensitive information is crucial. I mean, we've all witnessed from whoever the person was trying to sabotage this, there are people out there who want other people to do bad. Okay, so it's important that we protect ourselves. So my kind of parting wisdom to you, when you go into the wide world as data analyst, when you're dealing with data, make sure you stick within the rules, make sure you protect the data. And it's not only customer data, it's business data as well, because if you have a breach of business data, that could be sold on to competitors. It could potentially be used to harm your business. So make sure you stick within the lines and treat all data with the kind of sensitivity and security that it needs to. And that wasn't my code on the padlock either, just in case anyone's made a note of that. Okay, so solutions and best practices then. So strategies to address data challenges. So consider data governance, consider quality control and encryption just to protect yourself. Quality control, I think we talk about quality control shortly, but I'll just go into it briefly now. So things when we talk about quality control, if we have like a big spreadsheet of data, and we're talking with yes or no answers, for example, let's say we're talking about yes or no answers. You've got multiple people adding to the spreadsheet. So somebody might put in their YES to say yes, and someone else might put in just the letter Y. They both mean the same thing, but when you actually come to analyze the data, you might have a bar chart that says, 10 of the YES and 15 of the Ys. And then you might have 20 no's, So looking at that and interpreting that data to the untrained eye, you might say there's more no's, when in fact, actually combining the YES and the Y, that's more yeses. So if you got it right and applied some quality control kind of methodology at the start, maybe it's kind of, sorting out what exactly is the field input criteria, or maybe it's sanitizing data before you interpret it. That you've got to do that to make sure you don't send yourself off down the wrong path. Okay. Regular audits of data and obviously employee training as well. And then tips for maximizing data's potential. So ensure the data accessibility of the right stakeholders, and then foster a culture where decision makers are encouraged to rely on data. So that's one thing we do at Purple Beard, very much so. We are totally data with decision makers. Okay. And that's what we do via our monthly, weekly meetings, and when we're looking to make changes or improve a provision. Okay, so a bit on future trends then. So obviously we're aware of emerging technologies. So things like AI, machine learning, Internet of Things, they're all right around the corner. I think we're all aware of that. And the field of data analytics is continuously evolving. I think everyone's aware of that as well. So we need to get on board with this, but also in the back of our minds, we need to make sure that we're kind of understanding the basics, understanding the key principles and the underlying principles that kind of drive effective use of data. Okay, so this 5-step process, it kind of hammers home what I've talked about before. It's all about determining, what the issues are you're trying to solve, what's the dragon you're trying to slay, what are the goals, what data is it you need to target, how are you going to collect and analyze it, and then what do you do in terms of making decisions. And leaders and managers, they play a key role in championing data-driven culture. Okay. Without leadership consensus, it's very hard to get an organization or a team to kind of play along with, or kind of, step into the kind of data analysis methodology. Okay, so just some summary and key takeaways then from that. So firstly, understand the differences between the data out there. So before you run off and try to solve the world as data analysts, understand what the difference is in the data and what you're trying to solve. Identify which ones may work best for you. Identify the best method of data collection that's right for your business. Consider upskilling either yourself or your business in things like business analysis or data analysis as part of your business's evolution. Ensure analysis and visualization allows for clear conclusions and concurrence amongst your team. Make informed decisions based on data, and maintain focus on future trends and industry changes. Now, just before we move on from that, so we know when a team's got it right because the conversation changes, and we've seen this in Purple Beard. So, it used to be people come to you to say, "I think this is the problem. I think this is the solution. What do you think?" And we've gone from that kind of conversation to something like, we've identified this problem. The data is telling us that this is what's happening. The data is telling us that this is the best solution. So this is what we've done. Yeah, and you can see the difference with that and which one's more powerful. And if you wanted to sell that to somebody else and gain kind of alignment within your team, the second conversation is by far and away the more powerful one. So that's the kind of power of it.